Hello and welcome to Beyond the Noise, the podcast series from PRWeek. I'm John Harrington, the editor of PRWeek UK. I'm with my PRWeek colleagues Danny Rogers, editor-in-chief, and Siobhan Holt, news editor. Hi to you both. Hope you're well, dealing with the heat and so on.
Yeah, good. Yeah, survived it, just about.
Obviously, I was in Cannes, but I hear it was almost as hot here, right? So
Yes, possibly even more so. But then we weren't walking 20,000 steps along the Croisette
At least.
every day. Yeah. So today's episode obviously is all about Cannes, the International Festival of Creativity for 2025 that came to a close on Friday. Danny, as we mentioned, has been our man in the Croisette over the nearly week-long event. As usual, there are plenty of talking points about the big trends in creativity and, crucially, what it tells us about PR's place in this world. So, firstly, Danny, you've been going to Cannes for several years now. What would you say have been the biggest differences this year in terms of the event itself? Who's been attending, the range of events and so on?
yeah, it's difficult. I've been going 15 years, I think, now to Cannes, so
Wow.
quite a few, and it has got bigger over the years. Whether it was bigger this year than last year, it's difficult to tell. I mean, it's just packed. There's lots of Americans. That was one of the notable things about this Cannes. It just felt like there were more Americans than ever before, particularly the tech media companies, Spotify, Snapchat, Amazon. Yeah, they're all spending huge amounts of money. It felt just as busy as usual. It felt like the work was very good this year. We're going to talk about that, but not necessarily from PR.
So going on to the PR Lions, you wrote a piece that you found the results a tad disappointing for PR this year. It'd be good to sort of look at that a bit more. Why was it a disappointing showing, do you think?
I think compared with last year, where there were some amazing PR results last year. There was Golin's 2 Grand Prix for the misheard version. There was also Edelman's Titanium Award for DP World. Whereas this year, I think you're going to give us a roundup in a minute, but there were no Grand Prix for PR agency-generated ideas. There was a couple of golds, and most of the others were silver and bronze. So I think not so much disappointing from PR, but Paris Mid last year, we thought maybe last year was going to be a real landmark, and from then on, PR agencies are going to keep on winning Grand Prix. They're not necessarily.
Yeah, so no room for complacency. But also, yeah, it's a volume thing, isn't it? I mean, obviously there were still good campaigns from PR agencies that were recognised, and congratulations to those, but there's just not as much of it as we'd like.
It's difficult to tell whether agencies were just cutting back on spend, couldn't afford the entry fees of as many entries, or whether the work just wasn't as good. I suspect possibly a combination of those two things.
Yeah, no, I expect so. And what was the mood like among the PR figures you've spoken to? Were people similarly maybe slightly disappointed, or just happy they'd won things?
I think perhaps secretly they were a bit disappointed, but of course, being PR people, they are all over LinkedIn saying how well they've done and thanks to everyone. But they had to be, really, I think, because almost every agency, every big PR network did worse than it did in 2024. So I think secretly they were disappointed. It's not the only reason they go to Cannes, of course. They go to meet clients. They go to hold seminars, to do round tables and all sorts of things. So it's not just the awards, but from the awards, a tad disappointing.
Yeah, but it's not all bad, of course. And there were plenty of high points for PR agencies. What would you sort of pick out as some of the high points among the work that the PR world has put forward for Cannes this year?
Yeah, well, I was actually going to pick 2 PR winners that weren't by PR agencies to discuss, because I tend to agree with Tom Beckman, who was the president of the jury on the PR Lions this year and is also the creative director overall of Weber Shandwick. And he was saying it doesn't really matter whether the ideas come from PR agencies. We should be looking at great earned media ideas and celebrating those and learning from those. And of course, the Grand Prix winner was the Lucky Yatra campaign for Indian Railways by FCB India. And you've probably seen this amazing idea whereby I think 41% of people who travel on Indian Railways don't buy a ticket. They can get away without buying a ticket, which is costing Indian Railways millions of pounds, rupees, I guess. So the idea was Indians love apparently entering lotteries. So why not use rail tickets as an automatic entry into a new lottery system? So in other words, if you buy a ticket, you get entered into this Lucky Yatra lottery, and the winners come up I don't know how often, but fairly regularly on the stations, on the trains. So it ties people into this idea it's worth buying a rail ticket. I think 35% uptick in ticket buying since that campaign has been running. So, yeah, incredible campaign, really.
It's really good that. It did bring back some weird memories for me because I was in Mumbai and I did buy a ticket.
I was going to ask if you did, John.
The opposite thing happened to me. I bought a ticket, then I couldn't work out which train I needed to be on, which platform I needed to be on. There were so many people. I ended up getting a taxi. So in a way,
it's
I'm
a
the opposite.
different comms problem there.
It's a very different comms problem. Yeah. But if everyone was like me, there'd be no one on the trains and everyone would pay. So anyway, I don't think we've learned anything from that, but other than I'm not very good at trains in India.
But Tom Beckman was saying, it's a brilliant real solution to a real problem, and it involves great newsworthiness, engagement, and attracting people into our system, which is very much an earned media idea. So, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, no, it struck me as a really brilliant idea. And any other? Do you want to talk about your next?
Yeah, so the other idea, which was a UK idea, and it was a campaign we've discussed in PRWeek quite a bit over the past year or so, was O2 Scam Baiters campaign. And of course, that was to get an AI granny called Daisy to tie up scam callers by just keeping them on the phone for ages and ages. And it was quite funny to listen to. And it distracted them from being able to scam anybody else. And as much as anything, it was a great use of AI, which gets a bit of a bad rep generally. And we'll talk about that possibly later. But it was a use of an AI character to create a campaign for good. So that won gold in PR and a silver in PR as well. Unfortunately, it wasn't by a PR agency. It was by VCCP, which is an integrated UK agency, has ads and PR elements to it. So, very impressive, very effective, I thought.
Yeah, no, I love that campaign. Siobhan,
Yeah.
which ones stood out for you?
Well, there's been some really strong ones, but I think for me, the one that it definitely got a bit of an emotional response, I will say, at the end, was the AXA Insurance 3 Words campaign, which won silver, gold at the PR Lions, but also Titanium Lion Grand Prix. And it's a French campaign aimed at addressing domestic violence. In what I didn't actually know was that it's actually a legal requirement in France to have home insurance, which it isn't in the UK. And so as part of that, AXA, which is one of the leading insurance companies in France, they changed their home insurance so it would include, as well as things like flood and fire, it would cover you for domestic violence. So, for example, if you were, I presume it covers both men and women, but say if you're a woman that is experiencing domestic violence in the home, you'll be able to call up this emergency number. You and your children then will be taken to a safe place and you'll be offered psychological support, financial support. And it was a phenomenal campaign created by Publicis Council in Paris, and it saw a 9% uplift in new contracts. It was featured across 118 media outlets, but more importantly, it's helped 121 people in the first month. And they used a quote which was really powerful in the campaign video from a survivor who said that the relocation felt that they could breathe again and it was a beginning of a new life. And I think it was that really caught me when I was watching it. But I think apart from it being a very moving campaign, obviously, it shows that campaigns are moving away from purpose for purpose sake to instead focus on the human impact. And I think that's what you were saying, Danny, about the AI Daisy. It's really showing how it's impacting, but using it in a really clever way. And there's quite a few examples, I think, this year which really stood out for that. And I think that's what's winning that earned element to it.
Wasn't AXA given the creative client of the year overall at Cannes for that campaign?
Yeah.
And it won in a couple of categories as well, I think.
Yes.
I can't remember which they were, but definitely a couple of Grand Prix, I think, at Cannes this year. Yeah, brilliant campaign. I was at the announcement of that particular panel, the press conference, and when everybody watched it, you could see they were like, wow, this is one of those moments where you think, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think I watched it twice, and both times I had that moment at the end where I was like, oh, yeah, you had to take a second, definitely. And another one that also had a similar effect was one from Weber Shandwick. Weber Shandwick scooped 2 awards in the PR Lions, so a bronze for their Airbnb icons, for Airbnb obviously, and silver for their Vagina Privacy Network for MSI Reproductive Choices, and that was credited to Weber's San Francisco office. So the campaign was in response to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which happened in 2022, which, for those who aren't aware, it means the constitutional right to an abortion in the US was overturned. So as a result of that in the US, messages and texts have been used in abortion-related lawsuits. So anyone that maybe are wanting to search for information or on reproductive care could be tracked online. So MSI Reproductive Choices, they together with Weber, created this underground playbook, which uses a really clever idea. It uses tools that are often used for criminal offences, so things like burner phones, encrypted chat functions, deep web access, and VPN, and they turn these into tools instead for what they classed as digital self-defence. So they played around with the idea of a VPN. So rather than it being a virtual private network, it became the vagina privacy network. There's your little play on words.
I think what's really interesting about these campaigns that you've both discussed, I mean, particularly the AXA one and Virgin O2 one, is that sense of very strong purpose, but one linked to what the organisations actually do.
Yeah.
It's not an abstract thing where it's like, we want to help save the environment or the whales or, whatever it is, or mental health. This is about using their technology and their expertise to actually improve lives for people.
100%.
So that's the interesting way that purpose is evolving there.
In their swim lane, as you would say, rather than out of their lane.
Exactly. So that's great. So I'm going to talk about my campaigns that struck me. Firstly, Starring Bars for Heineken by Edelman London and Le Pub Milan. I really love this, not just because it brought back memories of writing about the pub industry, but I genuinely think it's a really good campaign. So Heineken started paying struggling bars between 10 and 15,000 euros a day to shoot its ads on their premises. This is happening at a time when pubs are really struggling. So it helped with publicity for the bars, 70 took part. They also expanded it by creating a catalogue of Heineken's own bars that they offered as locations for films. What I thought was particularly clever here is they targeted movie location managers on LinkedIn. I think this is a really good example of a campaign that helps a key component of the brewer's business, its pubs, of course, and helping to create a positive image for Heineken in the industry. And I can tell you, pub companies are often not popular among pub operators. So that's a bit of context to this. I see this as both a B2B and a B2C campaign, actually, which is really interesting. It's good for local publicity as well. You can imagine how this would help for the local news and so on to get a sense of your local is included in these adverts and so on. And it's also not a huge investment because presumably the money for the films would have just been diverted from elsewhere. So I thought that was a really strong, as I say, interesting link between B2B and B2C and a good earned media campaign. My second one, I'm staying with food and drink, Nutter Butter, You Good by Dentsu Creative New York. Let me explain. This was a really great way, I think, to bring back to life a brand that had fallen off the radar a little bit. A series of frankly weird TikTok videos were published over quite a long period that brought Gen Z in particular into the Nutter Butter universe. It's very hard to explain these, but do take a look. They looked like, I could just best describe it as like a surreal fever dream, but with its sort of own lore that started being creative, all starring the main peanut character. These got a lot of media coverage. Commentators were asking, are you okay? Basically to the brand, and asked if it needed help. It reminded me actually of the weird, creepy pasta viral trends like the Slender Man from a few years ago, if anyone remembers that. Maybe not, maybe just me. Anyway, it feels like that was a big trend, a sort of something that people like to talk about. Anyway, the campaign generated 249 earned views and more importantly led to a 16.5% uplift in sales among Gen Z. Ooh. I think this is a great example of the use of social media that doesn't resort to big name celebrities or influencers. It was just in line with what people are into, what works, what creates talking points, and it was properly earned media. So yeah, thumbs up for that one from me.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting what you say about it was properly earned media. And I must say, I came away from Cannes this year thinking, what is earned media again? Because it just seems to be so many different interpretations of it now. People are talking, it's more now about community and creating through entertainment or connections. And obviously the big shift towards creators as part of the medium by which you reach communities is a big trend. But certainly there weren't many classic earned media campaigns at Cannes this year.
Yeah.
As far as I could see.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, actually. Or if they are, they're sort of, maybe they didn't win. Maybe they were just eclipsed by things that had a bit more sparkle to them.
Yeah,
frankly.
And maybe that's the point, right? That simple earned media campaigns in terms of classic press, TV work now just doesn't impress juries enough.
I wonder if it's as simple sometimes as it's harder to create a good video for them because they're less visual in a way. It's not about we have good relations with journalists and we managed to get these.
I think that's right. Although arguably the media is more visual because now most media are TikTok films or Gen Z don't probably read much traditional print media or listen to the radio that much, as far as I know. So I think video is the new medium.
Yeah. One thing that struck me this year is, we mentioned purpose campaigns already, but I wonder if, because the narrative of the retreat on purpose campaigns, particularly in Trump's America, the retreat on ESG, the retreat on DEI, I wonder if a lot of the jurors were really purposely going out of their way to show that they are still interested in these kind of campaigns. So maybe, and it could have been subliminal, but actually I wonder if there was more weight given to some purpose campaigns. I'm not saying that the purpose campaigns that won aren't good, because clearly the ones we spoke about were good, but it feels like maybe there were slightly more of them winning this year, even if overall I'm not sure if the quality of purpose campaigns was necessarily any better or worse than previous years. What do you think?
I tend to agree. And it was interesting that Dove's campaign for Real Beauty picked up several big awards again this year, almost like a nostalgia for the original classic purpose campaign. And I know Campaign for Real Beauty has innovated. I think it's doing more stuff now with even AI, the way that AI changes female beauty in the media. But it's definitely still a big talking point. A lot of Unilever campaigns did very well again this year, and a lot of them quite old school purpose.
No, it definitely feels like there was a desire among Cannes to show that it hasn't forgotten purpose.
The good.
Yeah, and I also wonder if, we have seen maybe a bit of a retreat of that anti-ESG, anti-DEI movement in the States, possibly as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, I agree, because I think last year we definitely saw more of a move towards humour, and I don't think that was as evident this time. As you say, it was much stronger on purpose, but purpose with a business lens. It was like they were trying to, and I think there will be a move towards this, where it's people will use purpose alongside the business side, that they both have to be hand in hand, otherwise it doesn't work.
I think that's right. I think people have definitely seen through the plastic purpose.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're actually at Cannes, something you notice as well is that the community kind of wants it in the Palais, in the press conferences. There's a sense that we feel connected to this industry because it does do good. We are doing more than simply making money, which may or may not be true on Cannes. But I think they want it. I think the audience wants purpose. So I think that's probably an element of why those campaigns are still rewarded and lauded.
I think so. I wonder if it links a little bit to the guilt we all have, particularly in Cannes.
Yeah, probably.
With all the stuff that's going on in the world and people sipping rosé in these beautiful...
Yeah, it is very much a bubble, but I think people are conscious that they are in a bubble. And there is an element of guilt to want to look outside to real problems and real solutions.
I thought I would talk about the stats on the total number of campaign wins by PR agencies for idea creation credits, not for other credits. So according to our analysis, 22 campaigns with the idea credited to a PR agency won Lions this year. That's down from 31 last year. So that's fewer. But what I think is more telling is you look at the category of Lions. This year, there were only 2 golds won by PR agencies. Last year, there were 10. This year, there were no Grand Prix wins, and last year there were 4, which I think does sort of tell the story, really, that there are a higher proportion of bronze wins this year than in previous years. So, as I say, that's no shade on the great campaigns that did win. So congratulations to everyone. Should all be very, very happy. And I think you'd probably give a bit of a special mention to Ready 10 for its work with McDonald's for the meal campaign, and also to people like us that won a Lion for its Name the Bias campaign.
Yeah, totally. And also, let's not forget Currys, which picked up a bronze in the social and creator Lions. Apparently they were added quite last minute, so they flew over and got their bronze Lions. But I think they were delighted for that, which was one of our campaigns of the last year, right?
It was, yeah. No, that is absolutely brilliant. And particularly flying the flag for the UK, because the UK has done well, actually, I think, overall. If you look at the number of wins by the likes of, well, the ones we mentioned, but also Edelman and a few others. And Golan, of course, winning another gold for Misheard Version.
Yes, we didn't mention that, did we? That won creative effectiveness for Misheard Version, which, of course, was the impact of that campaign over the past year. So big shout out to Golan for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to end on a positive note. That's all we have time for this week. Thanks to Danny and Siobhan, and thank you for listening. Until next time, goodbye.